So my name's Emma Cook. I own a small consulting company called The Value Venture, and I advise mid-sized companies generally on how to get on their strategy for balancing the value they deliver to their customers and the value they capture back through price. That's sort of the main principle of my strategy consulting. We're going to talk about that today. I've worked for 25 years in large multinationals throughout the world in logistics, in publishing, in information management. And I made the decision some years back to take that experience that I built up over those years in those different industries and build a consulting company predominantly for business to business service companies, but I do work with all sorts of other clients as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Let me just share with you what we're going to be talking about today. Please feel free to jump in with questions or write in the comments. And I have to say that having lived in many places in the world, the UK, the Netherlands, China, Portugal, if I could be anywhere today, I'd actually really like to be in Slovenia. So I would very much rather be with you guys there today than speaking to you on Zoom, but hopefully one day soon. Okay, now I'm just going to share my screen. So we're going to spend, it's two sessions, but they're actually going to blend into one pretty much because they're all part of the same theme, which is positioning and pricing. A couple of things before I start. We're going to be talking about positioning and pricing, of course, for the UK market, because that's why everybody's here today. But I would say that these principles are valid for any market that you're entering, including your domestic market. So what we're talking about here is really how to position yourself for sustainable growth in any market. But we're going to be talking about UK specific examples. Also, this is a huge topic. You know, we could talk about this for 2 days, and often a pricing workshop alone would take a whole day. So I've picked what I think are sort of the key points in these areas. I hope you're not going to think, well, you know, they're very obvious. But I think anyway, it's always good to have reminders on the key things that we need to be looking at. So I've taken the main points. Of course, there's much more, and we'll talk later about how we could share more information, or you can reach out to discuss any of these topics in more detail. Okay, so that's me. I've just already introduced myself. So the agenda for today. So I'm going to introduce what I call the value journey, and there's 4 steps in the value journey. I call it the route to sustainable growth. I'm going to introduce that in a moment. And then we're going to focus in on 2 key points. Key steps in making your marketing work. And we'll talk about how critically important this is for the UK market, for any market, in fact, but particularly for a very crowded, competitive market, which of course brings with it a whole load of opportunity, but also means that you have to work very, very hard with your messaging. So we're going to talk about the key things that make your messaging work. Mainly understanding the needs of your audience. And that's so key. We're going to talk about that a lot today. And in understanding the needs of your audience very clearly, that will enable you to get your value proposition right. So that's the sort of marketing section. And then we're going to talk about price positioning. As I said, we could talk about this all day, but we're going to talk about value-based pricing specifically. So first of all, I'll talk about sort of key components of pricing. We'll talk about common mistakes that are made, and then we'll talk about how to make value-based pricing work as much as we can in the time. And then we've got an interactive session after the break where you're going to actually work on a plan. And it'll be, we can't do marketing and pricing, the time's too short. So we're going to look at creating a really strong value proposition, a plan to create a really strong value proposition, or value communication, we can also call it that. So that's what the agenda is going to look like today. Now, before we start going into the content, we've got a quick quiz that Spela is going to facilitate. So if I can hand over to you, please, Spela, for the Slido. Okay. Right, so here we've got a couple of questions here. It's a bit of an icebreaker, just to get us thinking and get us in the marketing mood. So we've got a question here, and it's I should say this is we're talking averages here, but how long do you think you have to catch the attention of your audience on your website? So how long have you got to grab them? Between 4 and 15 seconds, 16 to 30 seconds, 31 seconds to a minute, 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Now, if you go to slido.com and you put in that code, it should be very, very simple. You register as a participant and you should be able to answer this question and we will see the results live. I can see a couple of results already in there. Give it a few more minutes. We've got 8 results. We've got 8 respondents. Let's see if we can get a few more. Okay, let's call it there. So everybody knows that it's really not very long. It's a very short period of time. The actual answer is nobody's 100% sure, but it's between 4 and 15 seconds. Now, somewhere in that area, I think it was in 2017, could even have been before, Time magazine put out a big piece about the 15-second rule and the fact that we only have 15 seconds to grab the attention of our audience. Now, of course, it depends on what it is we're selling, what our website is all about, but it's certainly somewhere between 4 and 15 seconds. There's quite a few website optimization companies now saying it really is sort of 4 or 5 seconds because the marketplace is so crowded and everybody's so distracted. And so, there's so much content. So, of course, the key message is here, we have to catch our audience attention really quick. So thank you for participating there. Next question, please, Shvela. Okay, so on average, how long does a business-to-business customer spend on a website? So once they're in, I should just say this is, you've hooked them, they're in. How long will they spend? So if they didn't bounce. Okay, so we've got 15 participants already. Thank you. So a little more varied response this time. And in fact, according to a survey by a large branding agency called Brafton, that's just under 2 minutes. And we'll look a little bit more detail how that breaks down. Again, of course, it depends on the industry very much. But on average, just under 2 minutes. We'll look later on how that does break down. So once you've hooked them, you're a little bit more time to engage, importantly. Okay, thanks, Bella. Next question, please. Okay, so we're jumping topics slightly now, and we're going to talk about the importance of customer experience briefly. So this is on the topic of customer experience. According to a survey done in 2019 by American Express, what percentage of people will switch brands if the purchasing process is too difficult? Thanks, Jeff. Okay. 14 participants, thank you. Indeed, the answer is 74%, and I got the source wrong. I should correct that. It's actually a survey by Salesforce.com, who obviously collect a lot of feedback on customer experience and customer switching behavior. 74% of people, according to that survey by Salesforce, would switch brands. They would switch their decision if the purchasing process is too difficult. So a lot about ease of use there, and we're going to talk about that as a really critical component of successfully doing business in the UK. Ease of use is really key. Okay, so just some fun facts. Thank you very much, Bella. And now we'll go on to talk about the actual content around here. Now let me just share my screen again. Okay, all right, super. So we're going to now talk about the content around how to successfully position and price yourself. And I talked about 4 steps in what I call the value journey. Now, these are the key things I would say as a business. And I have to say, it's an amazing and varied businesses we're talking about here today. So I'm really excited to see how we can apply these things in all of your businesses. And also, as I mentioned before, these principles are, as well as being relevant in any market, they're also relevant in any product or service. Okay, so the 4 key points. First of all, creating value. Now, this is what you do. You create value for your audiences. The point I'd like to make here is about ensuring that the value that you're creating is matching exactly what your audience needs and what they value. Sounds very obvious, but we'll look in a minute at some areas where this hasn't quite worked so well for some large companies. So this is about really understanding your customer needs and what do they value, what do they want from you. More about that in a moment. Communicating value. If you have the most amazing product and service, but you can't reach your audience, what you're saying doesn't resonate with them, they don't immediately engage with it, you're not going to sell. Again, obvious, but this is really, really critical area. Customer experience, very key in the UK. Yeah, and everybody knows, the world these days is very much, and our sales are very much dependent on what people say about us, what our reviews are like, what our peers are saying. So customer experience is absolutely key. And the standards of customer experience in the UK are very high. And by customer experience, I don't just mean customer service. We think about customer service as being a human touch point with your customer. Customer experience is everything. It's all the non-human touch points as well, how they first interact with you, whether that's by website, how the journey is. And then we've got pricing. Let me just move my screen here. So, if you do all of these things well, then you'll be able to price well and price for value. So this is talking about not pricing based on the costs of the products and services that you offer, pricing based on the value that you offer your customers. So if there's some statistics around, I think I'll share them in a moment, customers are willing to pay more for excellent customer experience. And, this is a mindset change, because I think historically pricing has been very much based on, this is what it costs me to provide my service. Not so much in the IT sector, I know, in the tech sector, but this is what it costs me, and this is the markup I'm going to apply, and this is what I'm going to sell for. So we really need to shift the mindset around that.
Emma, if I may disturb you here just for a moment, I know in your experience in living and working in Slovenia, a lot of Slovenian companies are doing exactly that, pricing on the basis of costs, right? I would also encourage all our participants, maybe if you like to switch your camera on and, be more interactive. You can ask questions, you can raise your hand or put thumbs up in the middle. So don't be shy. Emma can be interrupted and she can answer questions in the middle of the presentation, right, Emma?
Absolutely. And Barbara, if you see somebody's trying to ask a question, please just stop me. I probably won't see. Okay. All right. Thank you. Also conscious of time. It's already run 20 minutes. Okay. So we're going to look at each of these in detail, a little detail. Firstly, creating value. So what happened here? Second, my screen is frozen. So we're going to focus on these two areas predominantly today, marketing and pricing. Just a quick thing on this creating value. And, as I said, this is what you do, but there's still some checks that you really need to make sure that questions you're asking yourself on a really regular basis. Okay, I assume you've clearly identified your target audience, at least in your domestic market. I know that's going to be your next challenge for the UK, and I believe that's a topic on the agenda for next week, how to research your perfect target market. The key thing is here, understanding what they really need, what, the people that you're targeting, how are you going to help them succeed? How do they measure their success? How are you going to improve their life? And when you can talk about that in your marketing messaging, then you're going to hook them. Then you will get them interested in what you do. If you just talk about what your product is and not how it can help them, then it's far less. Thank you. I got my water delivery. It's far less. You're not going to stand out from the crowd. Are you saying features that they really do require, or are you making assumptions about what they need? And this comes down to market research. And of course, an obvious one, do you understand the market conditions and competitor environment in enough detail? Again, I know that's a topic for next week, so we're not going to go through that. But just to give you a small example of this may seem blindingly obvious, but even the big guys don't always get it right. There's many examples. You probably all remember the Google glasses, that undoubtedly there was a huge amount of R&D money spent. But this was as my son would say, an epic fail, based on the fact that there was assumptions about what users wanted. And this is a clipping of a news review. But there was no validation around whether the users really wanted this product. So it's a lesson, I think, for anybody in business. Let's make sure that we know our users want what we're developing. And it's not just the thing that we're developing, it's about the individual functions and features. There's many IT stories about bits of tech that have been over functionalized, and hence the cost goes up and the level of complication goes up, but users don't really want that. Okay, so then second step, communicating and selling the value with your unique value proposition. And this is so important. Your messaging must focus on your customer needs, what problems you solve, and how you differentiate. And I'm going to sound like a boring broken record because I'll probably say this a lot, but it's so fundamentally important. The basics: are you targeting the right people Do you know where they consume information? Are you going to the right place with your messaging? And are you getting them at the right time? How do they behave? I'm sure you all know about building personas. Who are your customers? Who really are they? What motivates them? How do they behave? And does your communication explain the needs that you meet, the problems that you solve, and of course, critically important, particularly going into a market like the UK, your points of difference? Why should they buy from you? And ideally, and I know this is difficult, can you actually quantify the value of buying from you? How are you going to improve their revenue, reduce their costs, reduce their lead times, increase their efficiency? Any data points that you can share with your customers, the likelihood of them engaging with you based on that will raise exponentially. More about that in a moment. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 in this value journey I'm talking about. Experience, customer experience is extremely important in the UK market. I've already said that, and expectations are high. So what I like to do with my clients is we literally walk through a customer journey map, and I'm sure a lot of you do this already, but it's worth redoing it at regular points. Every single touch point you have with your customer, in person or virtual, their interaction with your website, their interaction on the phone, their interaction when they meet people, all the way through to their interaction with credit control. Every time you touch with them, your user interface, of course, it needs to be a great experience. And there's a tendency to just focus on a few touch points, but actually every touch point is really critical. And we'll talk about pricing in a moment, but there's companies out there, and we've probably all experienced, where we pay a great price for a great product, and then we really get let down by something else in that customer journey that just we think, well, actually it's not worth the price we're paying because the experience wasn't enough. And how do you measure success? Also very important. Have you got customer satisfaction surveys in place? Are you looking at interactions with your website, the quality of interactions, etc.? There's many KPIs you can put around customer experience. And most importantly, of course, what's the story your customers will share with potential customers regarding their experience of working with you? So key questions to think about. We're not going to talk about that anymore today, but I think it pretty much speaks for itself. And here's the little fact down here. This was the American Express survey I was talking about. And this is a US fact, but we pretty much know whatever's going on in the US. If it's not happening in the UK already, it will be. 7 out of 10 US consumers said they have spent more money to do business with a company that delivers great service. So there's actual financial value to you, of course, in providing a great service. Okay, so then step number 4, value-based pricing. I'm going to dig more into this. And again, I'm going to talk more again about understanding the value that you offer to your customers. So how do you capture the value with the perfect price level and structure? So there's some questions here. I'm going to skip through these very quickly because we're going to talk about this more in detail, but it's understanding the relevant market, the differentiated value. How's your product or service different to others out there, and how do you differentiate the cost based on what you offer compared to others? A very important one, are you able to change your price for different customer types? And if you're not doing that, you really need to be doing that, because different customer segments have different needs and therefore a different willingness to pay. And do you understand customer level and product level profitability? All of those things. So there's some key things, there's many more about in terms of helping you to set the right price. That's the second session. So I'm going to whiz through here now. Any questions? Then please shout up. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on talking. I'm just going to have a sip of my water. Okay, right. So communicating value. Why is it so important? Now, we've already covered this in the poll, so we can skip through this. These are the facts that we looked at before, all to say that your messaging is critical. Now, I said I'd share some information about average time on site. This just, again, it says that depending on the industry you're in, you are likely to hold users on your site for a different amount of time. And I think, as this makes sense, the hospital and healthcare, it's a much more complex buy. I'm sure there's much more educational, technical content that needs to be consumed. So I think this is doesn't come as a huge surprise. I'm going to flick through. I can share more on this afterwards and all the sources and the studies, if you like. Another couple of key facts, and this is a really important one. According to this study by Gartner, which is fairly recent, 2019, less than 20% of the buying process involves direct interaction with your sales team. So it means that everything that goes on before you actually speak to somebody is really important. Again, it comes down to your messaging. There's a couple of other facts around there around the use of social media in business sales and video, etc. Okay, so the important bit, what actually is your value proposition? So in very, very simple terms, it talks about who you are, what benefits you provide, and why you do it uniquely well. Again, I know this is simple, but if you can answer these questions really clearly, this is the basis to all of your communication. And I know Joanna's going to talk, I think, next week about the media and PR, and your value proposition will cross everything, across the messaging on your website, or across the messaging of your salespeople. It'll cross your PR, it'll cross your social media in different formats. But the key thing is that you get the basics of it right and agreed within your company, and then you use it across all of your marketing. So who are we? What do we do? And what's important here is to also not just who are we make. So I'm going to pick on solar panels, but what are our values? Why are we special in what we do? Who specifically are our target audience? And how do we meet their needs? And of course, why are we unique? Why buy from us? Your value proposition needs to be very clear. If you can, it needs to communicate specific results so customers know what to expect, your uniqueness, and it needs to be read and understood fast. The tagline, the highlights, if you like. And then once you've grabbed your customers, then you can go into the detail. Don't try and do everything at once, because you'll lose them. Okay, I've just got a couple of examples now. Apologies, I couldn't have examples from all of your different business types, and these are predominantly service examples, and I think they're predominantly tech. But the principle is the same, as I've said, across all. So I like this one. This is from a co-working space, actually, a global co-working space. I think, yeah, this is from their, not for the site of any particular office, a company called Second Home. You may have heard of it. Very successful pre-COVID. I think there's the success of co-working. Obviously, this is a pre-COVID picture. Anyway, just to give an example, businesses grow 10 times faster at Second Home. Now, how they prove this, actually, then I'm not entirely sure, but let's ignore that for a moment. The key thing is here, what they've done here is they've thought very clearly, okay, our audience is small, mid-sized companies. What's the most important thing to our audience? They want to grow. Their businesses want to grow. So they've used that factor, the thing that's most important, the thing that's most valuable, as essentially the headline in their tagline here. Businesses grow 10 times faster at Second Home. What small business wouldn't want to go and be part of that community? And then they go on to talk, if you dig down and you talk to them more, they go on to talk about how and why and all of the opportunities that they offer as part of the Second Home community. I'm going to move on to another now. This is Crazy Egg, a sort of website optimization. What I like about this one, want to make your site better. Yeah, probably anybody that's searching for website marketing will want to make their site better. This one specifically, you can put your website in here straight away. There's a call to action, and they'll show you the heat map, who's doing what across your website. So there's something immediate. It's an immediate hook. But I just like the way that they have that they communicate it here. So the Crazy Egg is like a pair of X-ray glasses that lets you see exactly what people are doing on your website. It's clear, it's simple, and it's highly engaging. And they have a nice, again, a simple, quick communication. What do you get? What do you get? And they've obviously taught, this obviously links with what their customers want. They've done the research to know what their customers value. So we don't have the time to really dwell on these, but I just wanted to give you some examples of clear communication that resonates with a target audience. And actually this, I like this because, we talked about how can you make your customers more successful? What does success mean to them? How do you motivate them? And I just like this little comment here. Crazy Egg will help you show your boss that your changes worked. So it's really engaging with the individual. I'm not going to go through any more. Okay, so to create your own value proposition, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. I know I'm repeating now. Who are you? Who are your customers? How do you meet their needs? And how do you do it better in the competition? And I've highlighted the second point there because until you understand the customers well, you won't be able to do this. And I can never say too much about the value of doing customer research. And customer research doesn't have to be huge, extensive, expensive work, but it really needs to be done. And there's lots of ways of finding out about your customers. I've got a little model here that I like to use with clients. It's really simple, but ask the question, how do we improve the life of our customers? And this is a fun thing to do with your team. Just think about, okay, who are our customers and what's most important to them? And how do we help to solve those problems, to make them more successful? And there could be ways that you help them increase their sales. There could be ways that you help them reduce their costs. And there could be ways that you make them feel, which can be just as important. So I'm working with a client at the moment, for example, and they do fire and security products. And the most important thing for their customers is that they can sleep well at night because they know they're keeping their customers safe in terms of they're completely compliant with all the regulations around fire safety and security. So this particular client, all of their messaging must be around, it's not quite we help you sleep well at night, but it's about taking away all of their risk, taking away all their worries. And beyond that, they have different customers. So they have customers in retail, and they have customers in schools, and they have customers in hotels. And the messaging is different for each of those because, the thing about keeping school children safe has a slightly different message for perhaps keeping a property safe that doesn't have people in it. So again, the messaging needs to change by segment, your customer segment that you're talking to. I hope that made sense and I wasn't complicating that too much. So elements of value, there's many more, just some examples here. Do you help your customers increase their sales? Do you help them reduce their costs? Do you give them knowledge? Do you make them more compliant? Do you make them more credible? Do you make them more environmentally friendly? I'm thinking about all the businesses that are here on the webinar today, and the value you offer is all extremely different, but it's really working out what's important. And then based on that, you can build your messaging. Now, that's my first session up, so I'm going to move on, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to work on this during the workshop, so we'll talk about it more. Now, of course, the messaging, it's the foundation. And then what's, of course, really important is how you use it. And to reach your customer and reach them well, you need to be using all different, not just different channels, but different content. And I just wanted to share this with you because this is from, I like to use HubSpot research because it's quite it's well sourced and well grounded. This is from a global survey, November to December 2019, of what companies are investing in terms of the media, their content strategy. So blogs, I think everybody knows it's huge, but of course blogs are only relevant for, they're not relevant for all products and services, although that's becoming more and more. Video is hugely important now. There's a little fact there. 80% of video marketers claim that video has directly increased their sales. Okay, you might say that, well, they're marketers, they're video marketers, they would say that, but if it's not 80%, then it's a high proportion of sales, company seeing an increase in sales because of the use of video. People expect it now. Of course, it has to be good video, it has to be high impact, effective video, talking about why your customers, doesn't have to talk about why your customers should buy from you even, but it needs to talk about you as a company. I think this is particularly important now, of course, when we're doing much more remote, and it's particularly important, I think, if you're doing business in another country, to be able to explain a little bit about yourselves and give the credibility and the confidence that your customers need, or potential customers need. And then you can see all sorts of other media types that are important and are being invested in by companies around the world looking to grow their business. Okay, and just my final point here before we have a small break for questions, and then we go on to pricing. We've talked about all sorts of reasons why your value communication is important. For me, this is one of the most important reasons. If you can't clearly explain your value, your customers won't understand it, of course. And if your customers don't understand why you are different to your competitors, all they've got to compare you on is price, and they will just drive the pricing down. You know, they'll just be looking at price, and nobody wants to make their sale just based on price. You'll be forfeiting profit and opportunity to earn what you deserve if you do that. So if you don't clearly communicate your value, the customer's deciding factor is most likely to be on price, and we don't want that.